And welcome in everyone to this week's episode of Craze's Corner. We have a bold prediction show this week, so you're going to want to make sure you stay tuned for that. Jeff, Will, and I each have 3 bold predictions we're going to bring up for this fantasy football season. So maybe you want to pay attention. Maybe you can go make some trades for these players if you've already drafted. Maybe you want to play some bets on these players. We'll have to see. But we are going to talk about a few injuries first and some news. The first injury, Cooper Kupp, is going to miss at least week 1. There have been talks about him possibly missing more with his hamstring injury. Second time he's had an issue with it this offseason. Now we're into week 1, so it's definitely concerning. So we'll see how this all plays out. Things to note, Van Jefferson is their wide receiver 2, so he could definitely see a bump up. And we'll talk about their tight end a little bit later. Second news story is Jonathan Taylor was placed on the PUP list, so he's going to miss the first 4 games. Zach Moss is still questionable to be playing this week. If he does play, he's slated to be the starting running back, and if not, it'll be Deion Jackson. But once Moss comes back from his arm injury, he will likely get bulk of the carries out of that backfield. Will that amount to anything with Anthony Richardson? I'm not sure. And the final news story there, we got TJ Hawkinson signed a contract extension with the Minnesota Vikings. So he's now tied down to Minnesota for a few more years. You've got some good dynasty implications now. They've paid him, and he's going to be tied to Minnesota for a while. Him and Justin Jefferson should be a great duo. Another signing I just want to talk about briefly is Nick Bosa. Signed a big $170 million 5-year extension with the 49ers, which resets the edge market for all future dealings. So I want to know, do you guys think that it's a great idea that the 49ers were able to get this deal done, just break all the records, and now all the other teams have to follow because that's what their players are going to want? Or do you think that maybe this will backfire and Chris Jones, Brian Burns, guys who are looking for a contract just aren't going to get offered? And you can let us know using the Presser app. The Presser app is a virtual press conferencing app that allows you to host a virtual press conference from your phone. It's available on the App Store now, so you can go and check it out. It's going to be amazing. It allows you to post the press conference to any social media platform of your choosing. And you can record it all straight from your phone. It's super easy and simple to use, so you can check it out on Google Play and the App Store. And now let's welcome in our guests, Jeff and Will. Welcome in, guys. How are we doing?
Doing all right, man. Like Christmas Eve.
Yeah, we got football for us tomorrow as we record on Wednesday nights. By the time this is out on YouTube, it'll be Friday. But football is here. Week 1 could not be more excited. Got to go put in all my predictions for all the games, starting to set some fantasy lineups, getting some dynasty trades. Nothing better than week 1 is here. Like I said, we got some bold predictions to go through today. None of our predictions overlap, which is great between the 3 of us. We're going to get to talk about a variety of different things. Jeff and Will are going to be arguing when it comes to one team. They got some opposing views, so we'll definitely have to stay tuned for that. But first, I'm going to start us off with something I talked about on our running backs show, and that's that I think Miles Sanders will be a top 10 running back this fantasy season. You're looking at a guy who has been fairly consistent when he's been on the field in Philadelphia the past 4 years. He's been averaging 5 yards a carry, which is fantastic on the ground, and he's slated to get more involved in the receiving game. As much as I keep talking about this, he will have more receptions this year. This is an offense that was able to support Christian McCaffrey being the number 1 target. I don't know if he'll be the number 1 target, but he definitely will get the ball. Bryce Young's not going to want to sit there. We've already seen how bad this offensive line has looked in pass protection this preseason, and Bryce Young's going to have about 1.5 seconds to dump the ball off to Miles Sanders. So he's going to get up there when it comes to PPR points. And you look at Miles Sanders, he had a great offensive line in Philadelphia, so that obviously does come into play. But he was never, except for last year, he never really had the touchdowns on the ground. You look 2 years ago, he had none. And I think that's a number that should kind of stay around that 6 to 8 range this season on the ground. And you get his efficiency that we've seen from him. I think he's going to get tons of volume. This is an offense that when you looked at last year, Donta Foreman was able to put up, 200 carries for 900 yards, and he had 5 touchdowns. And that was only the back half of the season because Christian McCaffrey was there for the beginning of the season. So you look at numbers like that, and he was averaging 4.5 yards a carry. I think this offensive line can support a number one running back, and I think that the targets are going to be there and the receptions are going to be there, that we're going to see Miles Sanders PPR-wise is going to be an extreme value, and he's going super late in drafts because he hasn't played yet. So I think Miles Sanders, to me, is one of my favorite targets. Jeff, what do you think about Miles Sanders?
Well, Zach, you have infected me, I should say, because I actually drafted Miles Sanders in one of my money leagues, man. So I am hoping he stays healthy, one. And I do see that, I think he will probably be the top receiver. Basically everybody's hurt. They do have issues with the line. So, yeah, I can see Bryce Young just dumping it off to him. Now, what he does after the catch, that's what I'm hoping he's able to do something with. So I'm actually looking at it too, what Jonathan Taylor, I'm not saying that they're equal talents, but whatever Frank Reich was able to put in with the Colts that actually made those backs they had 3 of them at the time where they were catching it out of the backfield and making an impact. I'm hoping that translates. So that's why I actually did go out and pick up Miles Sanders as well.
Yeah, so. I think he's a great value in the 5th or 6th round that I've seen him go. I have him in a lot of my leagues. As you said, the injuries have been a concern in the past, and Miles Sanders is known to miss some games here or there. A lot of running backs are. There's not much you can do about that. But Jonathan Taylor did have his best season when it comes to receiving the ball under Frank Reich. And I think that's something that he brings to Carolina with him. And I know we're going to talk about Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit later in the show. We got a bold prediction about him. But Bryce Young in college supported Jahmyr Gibbs having his crazy reception seasons out of the backfield. So I think that's something, some quarterbacks, or another guy we're going to talk about later, Anthony Richardson, not known to dump the ball off to the running back. But when you look at a guy who's already done it before and is in an offense where they say they want to get the running back involved in the passing game, and they just paid him big money, I think Miles Sanders should be safe. What do you think about Miles Sanders this year, Will?
I think you converted us all into this. Miles Sanders today. So, Miles, maybe if you're seeing this, you should come on the show and thank Zach for converting half the fantasy football world into saying you're a top 10 running back. So I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination of him in the right situation with a new quarterback being able to have the safety net. I also think it's a combination that there's a lot of instability in the top 10 rankings of fantasy football this year. You got running backs that they were healthy and playing, and they were in agreement with their team on their contract. Well, to me, maybe that would push him down to maybe 11 to 13. But, yeah, I think he's probably one of the surer bets right now going into this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, contracts are up in the air for a lot of these guys. And Miles Sanders, he's got his contract. He's good to go for at least the next 2 seasons. So in redraft, I think he's one of my favorite guys to draft. I think in almost all of my drafts, I ended up with Miles Sanders this year just because I'm looking at all the guys that are around him.
Yeah.
I'm like, would I rather have DJ Moore in that questionable Bears offense? What's that going to look like? Or Miles Sanders? And I'm thinking Miles Sanders all the time. With Jeff, we're going to go to your next prediction, and I'll let you introduce it, and then we'll see how this plays out. But what do you want to talk about first?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I've got a couple of huge ones, man. I got to go back and look. Jeez.
Wasn't ready.
What's that?
Wasn't ready. Delay game.
Wasn't ready. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Was not ready. You got a few. I'm not sure which one you want to start with. I don't know if you want to piggyback off of the running back position. I don't know if you want to go switch it up.
Okay. I'll since I'll go with that one. Running back. I'll save my bigger one towards the end. But I have Jahmyr Gibbs winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. Is that the one you were thinking of, Zach?
Yep. Yeah, that would be the one I was thinking of. Like I said, we just talked about Bryce Young being able to support Jahmyr Gibbs in college.
I like the fact that he is going to be not just a running back. I think they trust him to be their lead running back, but I also think they're going to trust him to be basically a slot receiver. He's going to line up outside. He's going to be all over the field. I think he is going to be what Percy Harvin used to be, but also as a running back as well. That's what this guy has reminded me of.
He's going to be everything Cordell Patterson wished he could be.
With a greater talent. There it is.
Exactly.
With a greater talent. How about that, Zach? That should make you feel good that I said that.
There you go. That's what we like to hear. I think, we've seen a bunch of coming out. Ben Johnson said they're going to use Gibbs in ways that are going to surprise people. Jahmyr Gibbs came out and said he thinks he could easily run for 1,000 and receive for 500. So he thinks he could easily have 1,500 yards in this offense. And I think with all the hype around him, he's another guy that I've been picking up a lot in drafts in the third round. Pair him with maybe a wide receiver running back that you've taken early, and I think Jahmyr Gibbs, and you come back a couple rounds later, and Miles Sanders is still sitting there for you. So I like Jahmyr Gibbs and what should be a good offense with Jameson Williams being suspended for 6 games. There'll be some targets to go around. TJ Hawkinson is not there anymore. We'll see what this offense turns into if they can continue where they left off last year. Jared Goff can support. He can dump the ball off when he needs to with DeAndre Swift. We saw that. So I think that this could definitely be great for fantasy, and he could easily win Rookie of the Year, in my opinion. They took him super high. Will, what do you think about Jahmyr Gibbs for fantasy this year?
I think he'll be okay. I think we have to be realistic that David Montgomery's not a joke. And in fantasy world, he's going to score touchdowns. Montgomery's probably going to be the short yardage back, goal line back, and he's going to score touchdowns. So I think in the fantasy world, it hurts Gibbs. I also don't think he's going to be Rookie of the Year. I think it's going to be Anthony Richardson. I just think that's just trending that way because it just is what it is. But I think Gibbs will have a decent season, but there's a lot of mouths to feed in Detroit. But these ain't your grandfather's Lions, right? These are a new Lions that have a legitimate chance of doing very well this year, and we'll see. We'll see tomorrow night or Thursday night for if you guys are watching it tonight.
Well, we've already seen, and the Lions look amazing, and they absolutely destroyed the Chiefs. What you're talking about, Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm pretty sure he went off for like 500 yards last night.
He won Rookie of the Year tonight. It's already over.
It's already over. I don't know what you're talking about, Will.
You know what? It's listening to what you're saying, Will. I do believe that David Montgomery is going to be used, but I kind of looked at the plan like the Saints when Alvin Kamara started, to where they had Mark Ingram as well. I think it's going to be kind of that type of role. They're still going to be both be 1A and 1B, but one is just going to be that much more dynamic, I believe, than the other.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at the history of running backs taken within the top 12 picks, like Gibbs was, they tend to finish as an RB1 in their rookie year. So that's something to keep in mind as well. They paid up big to get Jahmyr Gibbs. They said they would have taken him at 6 over Bijan had they have stayed at their original position. He was going to be their pick. Whether or not that's true, that's what they said when they drafted him. So we'll see. This team obviously loves themselves some Jahmyr Gibbs. Will, you want to talk about Anthony Richardson? You just said you think he's going to be the offensive rookie of the year. I mean, we all know Zach's going to be Bryce Young. But what do you want to say about Anthony Richardson?
I'm sorry. I'm still trying to hear what you just said about Bryce Young being rookie of the year. Okay.
He's dumping the ball off to Miles Sanders every play.
He'll be dumping the ball off to somebody. Now, we'll have the same uniform as him. That's a whole other conversation. But we'll get there. Look, I just think Anthony Richardson is like, it's the Colts. What else they got? He's going to have to throw the ball. He's going to have to run it. And I think he's already proven he's going to run it. The question is does he get hurt? That's the only thing I'm concerned about. If he makes it through the whole season, he's 1,000 yards rushing and he's 8 TDs. That's a bold prediction for me tonight. And if he does that, he rushes for 1,000 yards, and he's 8 TDs, he is Rookie of the Year.
I mean, I still think it'll be Bryce Young when he throws for 4,000 yards and takes the Panthers to the playoffs.
Hey,
While the Colts
if you want to make that trade for Thielen in our fantasy league, if you believe that, you should be offering me a first-round pick for Thielen, because that means Thielen's getting 10 to 12 touchdowns.
I think I believe that more on the back of Miles Sanders.
Oh, okay.
And DJ Chark once he gets back. Yeah, I think Anthony Richardson, he's in an interesting position with Jonathan Taylor not being there for the first 4 weeks. They should have to rely on the passing game a little bit more. And we'll really get to see what he's made out of when he has, because I don't think anyone thinks that the Colts team is going to be able to, win, 9-10 games this year. So they're going to be trailing, and we're going to get to see, when they're behind, are they going to stick to the running game, or are they going to try and make him throw more, which is where he's not quite as comfortable as he is when he's running. So we'll see what Steichen does in that Colts offense. Last year, he was with the Eagles, and they ran a lot, but they were also winning a lot of their games. We'll have to see how that kind of meshes in Indy. I'm a little worried about Anthony Richardson as a passer, but for fantasy, I think he should be very consistent because he could very well lead the Colts in rushing attempts by the end of the season, depending on what happens with Jonathan Taylor. If he's not back till midseason, Anthony Richardson could definitely be this team's lead back. And Jeff, what do you think about Anthony Richardson? You think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, I think Anthony Richardson has some things against him. Yes, I think he possibly will be their number one, rusher. But I think that's what defenses are going to be prepared for, and they're going to stack the box against him because he actually has no wide receivers. Other than Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, did you see how many balls he dropped during the preseason, man? I'm just like, Josh Downs, come on, man.
Josh Downs.
I like
be careful.
Josh Downs.
Be careful. I know what your later predictions are. Be careful talking about Josh Downs.
Oh, I would, trust me, I'm taking my guy all day over Josh Downs. I like Josh Downs, but the way I'm watching him be used in that offense, he's not necessarily going to be one of those guys that's going to be able to contest, toward around the end zone, things like that, man. I don't see who other than Pittman. Like I said, Josh Downs, I don't want to put that label of a gadget guy on him, but he's, I don't see the second coming of Marvin Harrison in him. Put it like that.
I think he just
Reggie Wayne ain't walking through that door, so I'm wondering. That's my thing, man. I like Downs, I do, but I don't think this is the year for him. Let's just put it like that.
Did you just pretty much imply that Josh Downs is Cordell Patterson?
No. I'm gonna say he's an actual receiver. I just don't know how much he's gonna get the ball. Matter of fact, he was kind of overthrown a couple of times during the preseason as well. Yeah. So that's the difference between my receiver that I'll be talking about later on and this receiver here. Mm-hmm. It's a huge difference in who's throwing the ball.
There is that, but we got to stay near the bottom of the barrel when it comes to quarterbacks throwing them the ball for my next prediction here. I'm talking about a guy you can get at the end of your drafts who's going to be the number one wide receiver for his team. He's been going anywhere. I've seen him up in the 10th round, and I've seen him going all the way down there in the 15th, 16th rounds. And that's John Metchie for the Houston Texans. I believe he's going to be their number one wide receiver. I think that, he's dealing with a hamstring injury now, so maybe he doesn't have the fastest start. But as C.J. Stroud, number 2 overall pick, continues to develop, I think that this team's going to be trailing in a lot of games. So I think they're going to be throwing the ball, and I think that, C.J. Stroud being in that Ohio State offense can definitely support some great wide receivers. Not sure if you ever heard about the guys he was throwing the ball to over there in JSN, Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. So I think you get an Alabama wide receiver recovered from cancer. He's back out there this year, and I think that he was extremely talented last year. Had it not have been for the cancer, he would have been a top 15 pick in last year's draft, in my opinion. And I think that this is a situation where, he had an injury in college, which is also what helped, which hurt his draft stock. Had it not been for that, I think that he would have been, one of the top wide receivers of that draft class, which had Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson in it. And Drake London, if you want to count him. I don't really count him, but, you could throw him in there too with the great wide receivers out of that draft class so far. And I think that he's set up really well. There's no one really on this depth chart that scares me. Nico Collins has had his shot, in my opinion, and hasn't really stood out to me. Robert Woods, he's done for. You got Noah Brown they brought in, who can be an okay guy. He was good wide receiver 3 for the Cowboys. I'm not sure he's going to be any more than that. Xavier Hutchinson, Tank Dell, they brought in at the draft this year. But I think Metchie is the most talented wide receiver. And I think that the targets will end up going his way come week 4, week 5, when he's fully out there and back up to in-game speed. I think John Metchie can be, a reliable guy when it comes to bye-week fill-ins. And maybe some good matchups down the end of the stretch. You'll be fairly happy playing him. What do you guys think? Do you think Metchie will be the number 1 wide receiver, Jeff?
I don't. It's just unfortunate we haven't been able to see him play because what he was trying to overcome last year and now even this year, hamstring issue, not going to play this first game is just haven't really been able to see what he's, able to do other than going back to what he was doing before his injury in college. So that's my only thing. I mean, is it there for the taking? Definitely it is. But it's just if he's going to – and I've been wrong before. I remember way back in the day when a guy named Odell Beckham was sitting on the waiver wire and I didn't go ahead and grab him. Something said, you need to go grab that guy. And he turns out being an all-world receiver. So same thing could happen here. I just don't see it, man, if he's, having trouble already staying on the field.
That's definitely fair. Will, what do you think?
It's the Texans. Really? Okay. Number 1, number 5, doesn't matter. It's okay.
Hey, man, Stroud is pretty accurate, man. I was impressed on some of the throws that he made.
I'm just going to sit here and blink.
He gets a little frazzled when it comes to pressure in his face, though. From what I saw in his preseason games there, so we'll see what this happens out to. But I think he's a good pick at the end of your drafts if you ended up getting him, or maybe he's on your waiver wire. That's a solid possibility as well. I think he's a guy you should be looking at. I think we should do the wide receiver duel here between Jeff and Will. We got some Chiefs wide receivers we want to talk about. We'll let Jeff go first, and then will come in, and I'll chime in with my opinion and who I think is right. So, Jeff, state your case for who you think the number 1 wide receiver for the Chiefs is going to be.
You want to talk about a receiver that actually had an illustrious collegiate career and then ended up getting hurt. This guy was actually probably would have been picked, I would say – I believe he was coming out a year after, but has the same talent, if not more, than I would say a fellow Clemson alum, T. Higgins. And that is my guy, Justin Ross. This dude, I've even heard somebody else say this guy is actually the equivalent of A.J. Green. And he's with the top receiver there is. He's healthy.
Was this a draft in Vegas and everybody was drunk?
No.
Oh,
it was actually Jeff. It was Jeff at the draft.
Talking right. I'm sorry.
It was actually Dan Orlovsky from ESPN. He's in love with this guy as well. And I normally don't agree on things with him so much, but I agree on this dude is talented. He's big. He's fast. He's athletic. Patrick Mahomes loves him. Travis Kelce says, I can't wait till this dude gets on the field. And who else do they have as a number 1 receiver? I'm not worried about Scantling. I mean, it's almost like the same thing you guys just said, or Zach, you just said about Houston. Not worried about Scantling. Not worried about Tony. You don't know who you're going to get. I'm not even worried about Skyy Moore. Everybody's doing this big thing about him, and I'm just like, I'm not sold yet. This guy, I'm sold on to where they're actually even rating him higher than the guy that they just drafted, Rashee Rice. So I'm just like, and he's got the best quarterback in the world right now. So if there's anybody there's nobody that I see with a bigger upside than this guy right here. Matter of fact, as we were just talking about it, I went ahead and picked him up off the waiver wire for my live Las Vegas conference. I dropped Noah Gray. I'm messing around with guys. That's my strategy. If somebody gets hurt, I'll pick up their guy so they can't pick him up. Went ahead and dropped him, picked up Justin Ross. He is going to, where a day before, I'm looking at this on Friday. I'm doing the same thing as Dion. Now, do you believe? Do you believe? Yes, I do. I'll leave it there. Perfect. I ain't got a mic around here, or I drop it. Go ahead, Will. I see you snickering.
First of all, pony up with Rashee Rice. If Rashee Rice was at a different program, he goes much higher in the draft than where he went. So we're gonna leave that right there. And I think Rice is the long-term threat. If you're looking at the pecking order of the Chiefs wide receivers, I think 3 years from now, Rice is the clear number one wide receiver on that team. Just my opinion on that. But the number one wide receiver this year, and especially with the tight end having knee problems now, is going to be Skyy Moore. Clear as day, it is going to be Skyy Moore. I'm telling everybody right now, bold prediction, get there now. Get in while you can. Lock in now. They're going to put up points. He is going to score touchdowns. He's going to put up yards. I'm just going all in with Skyy Moore this year. They have nowhere else to go. He's in the depth chart they've released. He is in the starting lineup. Unlike Mr. Ross, who may not even be active. I don't know. We got a time machine. He's going to be active tomorrow.
They won't have seven. They won't have 7 wide receivers active tomorrow on the roster.
He's going to be active. They've already said they've already got him and Rice set for certain plays.
For certain plays. See, there's the difference. They are only going to be in for certain plays.
That sounds like
Skyy Moore is going to be in every play.
That's the Cordell Patterson right there. You come
right, it's Cordell Patterson.
Plays.
You know what this sounds like? It sounds like another guy that actually started off pretty slow, and he ended up now becoming the best wide receiver in the league.
Don't you dare say it.
Which is Jay Jettas.
No. That was Mike Zimmer's problem.
Whoa. I thought you were going with Tyreek Hill, who came in the league as just
that too.
You put him in every play, you draw up plays for him.
You're right.
You should have gone there,
Zach. I like them both. I'll take them both. Tyreek Hill and Jay Jettas. I'm taking them both. I like that. I like that, man.
I'm going to quote The Office. There's a cleanup on aisle 5. Can you take care of this, please? Because this is okay. I know we said bold predictions, Jeff. We didn't say crazy predictions.
All right. Justin Ross, you hear me beating the table for you, man. So if you do what you do, you got to come on this show, man. So you can go ahead and dog that guy right below me. Yes, sir. Write it down. That's my prediction. By the end of the season, wide receiver number 1 in Kansas City offense. Justin Ross, the boss with the sauce. Now you got me rapping. I'm done.
He's done.
I think that there's a couple ways to look at this Chiefs wide receiver core. I think Skyy Moore will be the most consistent of the wide receivers, and I project him to be the number 1 wide receiver. If I had to pick someone other than Skyy Moore to be the lead target in this offense, that's not Travis Kelce, my pick would honestly be Richie James. I think we saw a lot from him last year in New York, and he is just that kind of guy that just soaks up targets when he's on the field. And if he gets in the game, I think it will be hard for them to take him out of the game because he'll always be open. It won't be for the big plays like we're used to seeing. That'll be, your Skyy Moores, your Rashee Rice, Justin Ross. Those guys will be the big play guys. But when you want to talk about consistent fantasy output for this season, Richie James is a guy that you might be picking up after watching last night's game. Richie James, he could just be that guy. I'm not sure. We'll see. I think it's going to be Skyy Moore. That's the way I want it to go. I have him in a few leagues. He's the guy I've been targeting. So that's the direction I'm hoping it goes, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Richie James. I think Justin Ross is a little bit too out there for me, I think, to be predicting it. But if Jeff took bold and he took it a couple levels more, and if it happens, then we're all coming back to Jeff. Like, who's the next one that's going to do this? Because I think he could, but I think he wasn't drafted for a reason. This injury is hard to come back from, and we'll see if he can even look, on the field playing against starting defenses as a shell of himself of what he once was. We'll see. You got similar arguments to make for him and Metchie. Both got hurt at the end of their college career. Both didn't play last year. It'll be tough. But that's definitely an offense where if you get the right one, it will pay off. That's the high-scoring offense. If you're going to take your shot, I think Skyy Moore is going in like the 10th to 12th round range. And if you're going to take your shot on one of the guys there, you can get – I think Skyy Moore is the first one going off the board, and then you can get any of the other ones. So pick your guy, take your shot, and if it pays off, you'll be happy.
With Kelsey's status being uncertain, everybody should be picking up chief wide receivers if they're on the waiver wire because you don't know who's going to emerge.
Yeah,
if you have space, pick them up.
Yeah, and if Kelsey's not playing, I like the Richie James a little bit more and more because he's just going to be that 5 to 6 yard guy where Kelsey would just be open, over the middle for a few yards.
If Kelsey's not playing, the biggest winner might be McKinnon.
Yeah,
that's true too. Yeah,
right.
That's the problem with this Chiefs offense is that we could all pick someone to be the big winner based on Travis Kelce not playing because we have no idea who it's actually going to be. I'm going to go with my next bold prediction here. This guy finished as the PPR tight end 6 last year, half-point PPR. He was the tight end 9. And I think he's going to jump up into that top 4 for tight ends this year, possibly even top 3. His number 1 wide receiver on his team is currently dealing with an injury. And that's Tyler Higbee. He had 108 targets and 72 receptions last year. I think you look at this depth chart on this team right now, and if Cooper Kupp is not playing, it's Van Jefferson, Ben Skoranek, DeMarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell, Puka Nacua, and Tyler Higbee. And I think Tyler Higbee could easily be the number 1 target outside of Cooper Kupp on this team this year. I think that, Matthew Stafford, will he be what he used to be? Will he not be? That's still up in the air. I know Will obviously thinks Matthew Stafford is going to be terrible this year. No one's going to question that. But I think that this guy's going to get lots and lots of targets. And I think that's just going to come down to being a guy, there's a lot of tight ends that finish around that tight end 4 mark that you're still not happy with them because that tight end 4 came on the back of like massive games and then they were terrible. And I think you're going to get a guy that's going to get, 5 to 6 targets a game. He's going to probably have 4 catches for, 50, 60 yards. And he's going to get a touchdown. So you're going to get, 8 to 12 points week in, week out with Tyler Higbee. And I think he's going to be fairly consistent. So he's a guy that I could see easily sneaking up into the top 4. Injuries are going to happen to guys who are going to be, Kyle Pitts, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce. Guys are going to get hurt. And I think Tyler Higbee could easily sneak up into there, just being consistent and getting those targets. Jeff, before we go to Will here, do you think Tyler Higbee has a shot to be the number 2 target on this team?
I just don't know, man. I really don't know anything about the Rams right now. I've actually picked up Van Jefferson in a couple of leagues, and I've, really been trying to figure out who that number 2 guy is going to be. I honestly, what is it? Puka Nacua? He's a guy that's intrigues me, man, because he's one of those guys that that the head coach really likes. And he's one of those guys that kind of is Cooper Cup-ish, to where we didn't know, nobody knew who the hell Cooper Kupp was until he exploded on the scene. I was one of those guys that was lucky to pick him up. And I think this guy has those same type of I see a poor man's Cooper Kupp in this guy. But honestly, with the line issues the Rams have and everything else, I see a lot of dumpage going out to Cam Akers, to tell you the truth. That's the thing. Higbee has had I think that's the thing. I've been snake bitten by Higbee over the last 3 or 4 fantasy seasons now. So I'm kind of just like, I'm out on that train, So,
and lots of people are. That's why you can get them.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Very true.
If Cooper Kupp misses games, I think he'll be in. The one big takeaway I've had from this show is Jeff thinks that Justin Ross is Justin Jefferson and Puka Nacua is Cooper Kupp. So big comparisons coming out from Jeff on this bold predictions show. Will, what do you think about Tyler Higbee?
I think actually Jeff makes the case for Tyler Higbee, talking about the Rams' offensive line, because I think the Rams ended up playing a lot of 2 tight end sets this year. And without Cooper Kupp, Higbee, it's going to be Higbee's and Cam Akers, right? They will lead the team, because I'm not sure Cooper's going to play that much this year. I think the injury is really way more serious than people know.
Yep.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they shut him down. And when that happens, now we're talking about the Rams and the Cardinals tanking for the first overall pick.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's just going to be targets that are going to get Tyler Higbee up there. I don't think he's, the most athletic tight end. I don't think he's, going to.
And Stafford's going to get rid of that ball quick. There's no, even for Cooper, even if they say Cooper's playing, I'm not sure they can let plays develop. It's going to be quick, 3 to 5, 7-yard passes, 3-step drops, boom, 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 boom. Mm-hmm. And I think that really favors, it's just a Cam Akers, but I think it favors Higbee. And right now, look at the Rams. If I had to say who's going to lead in receptions and then Cooper's hurt, I think it is between Cam Akers and Higbee, who will lead the team in receptions.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And like I said, if Higbee can get that, then he should easily be able to finish in that top 4. Because he was top 6 last year. And, things weren't great for the Rams. Matthew Stafford wasn't there at the end of the year. Cooper Kupp played amazing for the first half of the year. So we'll see. Jeff, you got a tight end. Bold prediction here as well. Who you got?
Things are kind of lining up in that way. If Kelsey happens to miss too many games, I think DarrenWaller could potentially be the number 1 tight end this season, man, if he can stay healthy, because he's going to get the targets in New York. He is going. I'm looking at him in the same way, where pretty much he's the wide receiver 1 on that team. So if he can stay healthy, that's the only thing. If he can stay healthy, I think he could lead the league in the tight end category.
I think he'll be the number 1 receiver on the Giants. But I think that they're going to mix in their other 6 wide receivers that they've invested either draft capital or money into, or have been, coach's favorites. Darius Slayton's going to get the ball. Wan'Dale Robinson's going to get the ball.
Barkley's going to get the ball.
Yeah. Sterling Shepard's going to get the ball when he's playing.
Yeah.
There's so many people in that offense that I project DarrenWaller in my predictions to be the lead target, and
But you just said that. Who else does that sound like? That sounds exactly like the Chiefs situation. You've got a ton of wide receivers. We don't know who's going to get the ball.
Okay, hold on. Time out. So Justin Ross is JJ. I can't even see the Ram guy's wide receiver as Cooper Kupp. And now Jones is Mahomes.
No.
And
Okay,
Waller is Kelsey.
And Waller's Kelsey. There you go.
Is the ball going towards the guy that he's looking to throw it to? That's all I'm saying. They got a number of different guys where they can kind of spread it around if they want to, but the main receiver for Daniel Jones will be DarrenWaller.
Yeah, the way I projected the Giants out is the number one receiver on the team is DarrenWaller, and the number two receiver on the team is Saquon Barkley.
There it is.
Mm-hmm.
There it is.
But then you're going to have Jalen Hyatt's going to get the ball. Wandale's going to get the ball. Shepard's going to get the ball. Slayton's going to get the ball. Like, there's too much mediocrity in the receiving game in this offense I'm just
the gap between the top receiving targets and receptions and the bottom of the Giants is like this, right?
Yep.
Waller. What's the separation in your projections between Waller and Barkley?
I believe Waller and Barkley. I'll pull it up here right now, but I don't think Waller and Barkley targets wise was that off. But I do know that I had like 3 of the Giants wide receivers with over like 25 receptions, and none of them were over 35. So when you're looking at it that way, you're like, where does so I'll pull it up here in a minute. Just let's see. Giants. I have Saquon for 45 receptions, 346 yards. I got Waller for 67 receptions, 700 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And then I have Wandale, 34 receptions, Isaiah Hodgins, 37, Jalen Hyatt, 27, Paris Campbell, 37, Darius Slayton, 29, and Sterling Shepard, 14. And that feels way too low on Sterling Shepard. But, Hodgins, Hyatt, Campbell, which they just brought in, Slayton, Robinson, and Daniel Jones.
A lot of mouths to feed.
A lot of mouths to feed. There are.
A lot of mediocrity. This, to me, is like the Patriots wide receiver core. I want none of them.
I think the biggest thing with Waller is the ability to stay healthy. That is
especially if Waller's getting the targets we saw in the preseason where he's getting every other target. Waller's not going to last.
Yeah.
He's an older fellow now, I believe. He's in the 30s.
And if you think about the defenses he's playing against this year, it is smash mouth defenses. He'll catch the ball, but he's going to get hit. And it's I just don't.
Waller will be 31 next week. 31 next week. I like Waller. I have him as a top 5 tight end, but I can't see a path where he gets 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I think that's just a little. I only have Barkley for 2 touchdowns. I can't see Daniel Jones throwing for. So for Waller to get to double-digit touchdowns, he would have to have the same sort of target share that we saw A.J. Brown have for the Eagles last year, because both those quarterbacks aren't throwing for 30 touchdowns this year, and I don't think DarrenWaller is going to command the same target share we saw in super efficient offense in Philly.
Yeah,
we shall see.
We will. We will.
That's why it's a bold prediction.
You ain't lying, Jeff. You got 3 bold ones tonight.
Got some bold ones, man.
Yeah,
but
Jeff,
it can happen. There's a chance.
If there's any food company out there that is markets themselves as bold, you need to advertise with us, because Jeff is making some bold predictions and we will brand it.
Put some hot sauce on this stuff.
Right.
Man. That's what I did.
Louisiana, red hot, bold prediction.
That's it.
Yeah, Jeff coming with the bold predictions for sure. Will, we got one more left here. What is your last bold prediction before we end the show?
I don't think it's that bold, really, but for some reason, people are downplaying this. Tony Pollard, by far, is a top 5 running back. I think that was my exact prediction, right? Mm-hmm. That he's a top 5 running back in fantasy. He is going to get way more receptions than anyone even imagines. And look, Jerry has caused a tornado in Dallas by bringing in Lance. And it is a huge – every day it is growing and it is growing. I mean, just when you think the Cowboys couldn't screw up this season, they seem to be on their way to doing it. But as Dak Prescott, there is nothing but pressure here now. I mean, there was whole stories today. Well, why didn't Dak get a new contract? And Jerry had to come out and say, well, you know, I see Dak being here for a long time. People are like, well, why don't you give him a contract? Oh, Dak. Like, that's the wrong guy to put that pressure on. That's not who he is. And so I say all that because I was already high on Pollard before that. But with the Lance trade, I'm really high on Pollard now. Because Dak is he's going to get nervous about pushing the ball downfield, and he's just going to keep dumping it off.
I was a little hesitant on Pollard for a while, but I think I am starting to come around. You know, Rico Dowdle is going to be their backup, and Deuce Vaughn. Yeah, I think Dowdle could be good in this Cowboys offense, but I don't think he really threatens the receiving game. And I still don't think Deuce Vaughn turns into anything more than a gadget guy, 1 to 2 touches a game. I don't think.
And Deuce will have one game early in the season where he does really well, and everybody and their brother is going to make a run for him. Yeah. And so if you own him, if you have room on your roster, it may not be bad to stash him so you can trade him. I just don't think. I could be wrong, but I just don't think he has the body mass to survive in the NFL as a consistent. Like he's a 5 to 10 play guy a game, honestly.
And then, you know, you got athletic reporters saying that Tony Pollard's going to see a career high in touches this year.
Yeah.
Reports come out about that. So I think that he's going to see a career high in touches in an offense that we know is going to score points and put up yards at that. My biggest worry is Mike McCarthy. Every time we bring up a player on the Cowboys, we got to bring up Mike McCarthy because who knows what this offense is going to look like come week 8 when they have a new coach. Who knows? It'll be interesting.
Right. Wait, look. Y'all look. Don't put that by Jerry not to do that next year.
Not even next year, this year.
Oh, well, I don't think Dion would leave Colorado mid-season.
for the Cowboys,
okay,
Dion.
All right, here's a bold prediction. Cowboys they make the playoffs, they're out the first week. Dion's the head coach next year, and Mike Zimmer's the defensive coordinator.
That could happen.
I'll tell you what. If Shedeur Sanders comes out, Dallas doesn't make the playoffs, and they draft him, Dion will be their next head coach.
That would be quite the team. You'd have Trey Lance, Dak Prescott, and Shedeur Sanders.
Exactly.
Trey Lance
won't be there.
Dak won't be there. Trey won't be there. I can guarantee that. Dion will not. Yeah, no, you got to go.
Yep.
Look, can we all admit that Jerry Jones did that because he thought the Eagles were going to trade for Trey Lance?
Yeah.
I really do believe he thought the Eagles were going to trade for Trey Lance, and he took Trey Lance to keep him away from the Eagles.
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised at that. Jerry Jones is the type.
I mean, Mariota did not have a great preseason.
No.
And so I bet you even the 49ers called Jerry and said, "Hey, we're going to send him to Philly for a 5th."
Jerry's like, "No, you're not."
Exactly.
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised at that either. Jerry's the type of guy to trade for someone. Just like Jeff said, he was trying to pick up, Noah Gray so someone else couldn't have him. That's exactly what Jerry Jones would be.
Yeah.
But
Jerry believes they're going to win a Super Bowl this year. There's no doubt in my mind. I just don't know if Dak's the guy that can do it, with McCarthy especially.
No, I don't. I think they might maybe make the playoffs. We'll see. I don't think they'll win the division. Got a chance to play for some wildcard teams or wildcard games there, but we will see. But that was some 9 bold predictions for you. Some were bolder than others on Jeff's end there. Jeff always understands, bold is bold. So I hope you guys took something away from this episode. We will be back next week with in-season Craze's Corner. So you're definitely going to make sure you stay tuned for that. Hope you guys all have a good week 1 and you win your fantasy matchups, unless you're playing me, in which case, then obviously you're not going to win. But thank you, Jeff and Will, for joining. We'll see you again next week.
Merry football.
Yes.
Merry football.
Merry football.
Let's go, Justin Ross.
Broncos country?
No.
Let's roll.
No.